Measuring quality of hire has always been a challenge. Measuring quality of hire in a time frame that allows recruiting strategies to be adjusted and optimized in a meaningful way seems impossible. However, has AI just changed the game here? Keep listening to find out more. Support for this podcast comes from Smart Recruiters. Are you looking to supercharge your hiring? Meet Winston, Smart Recruiters' AI-powered companion. I've had a demo of Winston. The capabilities are extremely powerful, and it's been crafted to elevate hiring to a whole new level. This AI sidekick goes beyond the usual assistant, handling all the time-consuming admin work so you can focus on connecting with top talent and making better hiring decisions. From screening candidates to scheduling interviews, Winston manages it all with AI precision, keeping the hiring process fast, smart, and effective. Head over to smartrecruiters.com and see how Winston can deliver superhuman results.
There's been more of scientific discovery, more of technical advancement and material progress in your lifetime and mine than in all the ages of history.
Hi there, welcome to this episode of Recruiting Future with me, Matt Alder. Recruiting Future is a podcast that helps talent acquisition teams drive measurable impact by developing their strategic capability in foresight, influence, talent, and technology. This episode is about talent and technology. Timely and effective measurement of the quality of hire has long been a significant frustration for talent acquisition, with meaningful data often trapped in subjective performance reviews that arrive too late to be of any help. But what if AI could connect interview assessments, onboarding metrics, and performance data in ways that reveal which hires are going to succeed, creating real-time feedback loops that continually improve hiring decisions? So, how exactly can employers build these types of connected systems? My guest this week is Mark Linville, Head of Talent at Garner Health. In our conversation, Mark reveals how to identify accurate leading indicators for quality of hire, why authentic interview experiences help predict performance, and how AI helps connect the dots we've all been missing. Hi, Mark, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Matt. Good to be here, man.
An absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Please, could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah. So I'm Mark Linville. I am the head of talent at Garner Health, which is Series D health tech startup based in New York City. Before that, I spent about 8 years at a hedge fund called Bridgewater Associates. They're well known for their culture, for really trying to understand more about people management, as well as being the largest hedge fund in the world. And while I was there for 8 years, kind of made my way through the talent acquisition hierarchy and ended up leading tech recruiting for my last kind of 4 to 5 years there. The thing that I thought was really cool there, I'll just kind of share one snippet, was I actually got the opportunity to kind of build a talent function outside of core HR. So I actually, about halfway through, worked with the CTO and a couple other leaders to actually take my team. We went and embedded within technology. And so reported up into the CTO. Reason for doing that was because we're trying to solve very particular problems for technology hires, which we found very different than solving investment professional hiring, and needed to kind of build kind of functions and processes and capabilities that were unique to us. And so kind of, I would say, got my teeth really in, first principle designing and having to solve problems for the first time at that spot, and in particular in that process. And then, after that, I was there for 8 years. It was awesome. I went to another Series D tech startup here, actually based in Nashville, where I am, where I, took the team, or, had to scale again. And so took the team, had to build, grow, and fly the plane, and continue to build it and get all the processes working. So that's kind of my path to Gartner. And then on the personal side, I'd be remiss to say I'm not, I'm a massive soccer fan. Football, probably for most of your audiences, I played in college. I'm a Liverpool fan, so never walk alone, and really enjoyed the last season getting to watch them lift the Prem. So I'd be remiss not to throw that in there as well.
Being a Southampton fan, literally finished at completely the other end of the table.
Yeah, the other time. Well, I remember the time in which Southampton, basically, we was joke Southampton was Liverpool B, because we would just keep taking all your players. And so we were like, oh, great, fantastic. But yeah, sorry about the relegation.
Oh, it's okay. It happens quite often. So kind of coming back to TA, I mean, what do you see as the kind of the main market challenges at the moment? And you kind of worked in some innovative structures and seen some different things. What kind of TA leaders do you think we need to solve those challenges?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, well, I'll steer away at first for the easy one, which is AI is going to change everything. And so let me go towards more of like maybe a niche problem, which I think that as we are continuing to, in the TA space, be pushed to do more with less, with an influx of candidates out in the market, I think really what the main problem is becoming is, how are you able to find the right fit for your particular company in today's market? I think for so long there was such a focus on just getting bodied in and being able to scale whatever, and there's such more of a focus now, I think, on getting the right people in, and having a super quality of hire, being able to make one hire that's an amplifier for 2 to 3 other people compared to going and getting 2 to 3 other people. And so I think this more with less attitude trickles down directed to TA and directed to what we actually have to go and find and hire. And so for me, what that means from an actual kind of problem standpoint is, do you have to get way more creative and able to get the right people that you want? Are you having to be way more data driven in actually determining who are the people that succeed at our company, who are the people that are quality, and then can we take that back into what target companies we were going after, or what target people we're looking at. And I think 3, you have to do all that while being a leader for your team and not letting them get burnt out. And I think that's another really hard challenge in TA is there's, with the continued push and continued desire, again, like I said, to do more with less, you always risk ruin on people running out of steam. And or I think the last part of it, which will segue a little bit of how you deal with AI, is how do you also maintain this real human connection and human touch? At the end of the day, no matter what we are trying to do, we're still dealing with humans, and humans aren't numbers on a spreadsheet all the time. They have emotions, abilities, and so how are you continuing to have this enterprise scaling hiring practice while ensuring that every single person has a unique human touch and unique human element can experience to their process? And I think that's a really big challenge. I think it can become really easy to be super rote, to just crank and go, especially when you're being pushed. And I do think then, I guess, transition into the AI of I think that's also going to become the differentiator between companies that are using AI well and companies that are using AI to just do a lot. I think that companies that use AI well will obviously be able to innovate processes, improve processes, look at data a different way, solve, I would say, the low hanging fruit stuff that's a pain to be hands on keys and recruiting to go and do. But what I think it should also do is then enable recruiters to do the unique element of their job that AI, I do not think, can do yet, which is talk to a person, assess whether or not they're a good fit, really understand deeply, and then sell them on the company. I think those are going to be things that we have to continue as TA leaders to push at the forefront. Because I think when we lose that, we lose the combination of what I think this, not just job, but what this, what ultimately this sector is, which is a combination of art and science.
What I'm interested in is, obviously you sort of talk about data there, you talk about AI's capability to do lots and lots of things. Do you think, or are you seeing, or is it like this in your organization, that the boundaries between talent acquisition and talent management and all those kind of aspects of the talent cycle are kind of breaking down and starting to feed into each other more?
Yeah, I think that's naturally what I see happening. It's where I've always tried to push my teams to go. And I think ultimately is where TA is going to end up having to go. I think obviously everyone knows what the talent ecosystem or what, what the employee lifecycle looks like, right? You have, your business need that gets translated to a person. You have to go attract and hire that person. Then they come in, you have to onboard them, assess them, and either retain or exit. And I think the thing that we've struggled with has been, how do you take the learnings post the onboarding, or even honestly post the hire, and go, what's the connective tissue back to recruiting to evolve how TA actually does their job? And not just how TA does their job, but how does the manager think about their role? How does the manager think about their org? And does that actually affect what you need in the future? And I think we are going to continue, and again, going back to that theme of with the focus on quality of hire, with the focus on, again, doing more with less and getting the right people in the door, I think that's going to be even more stress test to say, okay, for any mishire, what did we learn? Oh, for any really good hire, what are we learning and how are we getting more of these people? And it's become, I think as a TA leader, you're going to have to almost become a very seasoned HRBP to start to create those connective tissues, conceptually HRBP, to create the connective tissue to actually evolve your own recruiting practice without it being pushed by somebody else. And I think AI can help with that for what it's worth. I think AI can look at that and go, okay, what interviewers, I think of AI as being able to do processes and analyze data in ways that I could never think about. And so it's cool. Are you able to then create the prompts to go, all right, let's see what our core interviewers are. Let's see, here are 10 mishires and here's the feedback and here's, what we learned. What do we need to how do we analyze that data? How do we actually look at, how do we go, oh man, we've had this interview isn't working, or, oh man, this actual company or this background is a common theme, and pulling those things out so that we don't continue to make those mistakes, particularly I think for companies that are trying to scale and grow, where every single hire is so important. That's going to become critical in how TA does their job going forward.
Yeah, 100%. I think it kind of solves so many problems about data being in different systems or not existing. So it's creating more data for us for things like interviews, and then, the ability to join it all up and actually create some kind of actionable things that make things better. It's just, it's kind of a massive opportunity. Come back to AI shortly. But just to kind of dig into the human side of things a little bit, in terms of candidate experience, what's your kind of take on the candidate experience? What does that look like in your organization?
So I think at Garner, we have a really unique, and I think I would call a very true to self candidate experience, where, I think there's been a lot of push for obviously standardized interviews and really trying to make sure that we assess people correctly throughout the process and are able to go apples to apples versus, very subjective. I think Garner does that. I think the added element of what we do that's really cool from a candidate experience standpoint is we try to make it authentic to what we think life will be like at Garner. And so we try to structure our interviews around real life Gartner problems, and then structure it around how we think you will interact in real life with us. And so, obviously we have our kind of interview that is focused about our culture, and we dive deep, and we have a very, upfront culture, and we want people to authentically experience what that looks like in the day to day. And in some ways, we actually expect some people to opt out of that, and we're okay with that, because we'd rather have them opt out now, knowing open kimono what everything is, compared to get in and also know wait, I was lied to. My interview process is not what's going on. No. We want you to know. And so I think that's really, really big from a culture perspective. But then I think the other thing that's super cool that we do is we really try to structure our meat and potatoes interviews around, like I said, real life Garner problems, and solving them with real life Garner people, and solving the way that we think Garner would try to solve them. And so, in my space, right, instead of, asking about a time a search has, been off the rails or whatever, and how do you deal with hiring managers? I have literal 3 prompts that are problems that we deal with on a day-to-day basis at Garner, and we talk about that. And then it's literally just a session of, here, we are solving this, or hey, I haven't even solved this problem yet. I would love to get your ideas. So there's no right answer for what the thing is, but really what we're trying to get at is, how do you think about the problem that we're trying to solve? How do you design and diagnose whatever the issue is? How do you get more information? And then how do we do it in a way that's actually, like I said, authentic to how I think we will work at Garner together, and structure interviews around that for our working sessions and our case studies that I think is just like a slightly different take on, candidate experience, which is just like, hey, we want you to really, like, the goal is we want you to know what it would be like to work at Gartner, full stop. And then we think we can get a good assessment through that as well. But ultimately, you can also assess us and determine if that's a company you want to join and this is a place you want to be. And these are people that you want to actually be side by side with as well.
You mentioned quality of hire earlier. We were talking about joined up data and all those kind of things. From a TA perspective, how do you judge quality of hire? Because obviously that's something that could take quite some time. It could be quite subjective. How do you kind of judge the quality of people that you've hired?
Yeah, if I fully ever solved this, I'll just start my own company and let you know that. So I can't say I'm the right answer, but I can tell you what at least I've done and what I know our problems are about it today. And so I think the thing you stated up front is like, yeah, I would say typically I've seen quality of hire go in two different directions. One, which is people just look at the scorecards and feedback from the interview and try to assess like, hey, is this a really strong hire, an okay hire, or whatever. The other side of it, which is, I think, the unfortunate side of quality hire, at least for how it's been structured today, is this lagging indicator of performance reviews, right? So like you hire someone and then really you can't tell if they're a quality hire for 6 or 12 months. Like that feels way too long, particularly for how fast and the velocity we need to like adjust and evolve things. And so what I am continuing to do and what I've continued to push to do, and, we're working on this, actively at Gartner, is trying to figure out how fast of an indication can I get through structured like check-ins, right? We talk about 30, 60, 90 onboarding, which is like, why is there not an assessment piece of that? Why can't we actually have like true signal early on to understand like if things are going on or off the rails? I think that actually like, AI can actually help in onboarding so that like you can actually get to the ramping period to be down so you can actually get to true assessment faster. I think though that like the data that you have to start to structure is you have to have your core competencies really lined out for the role and have a clear understanding of what success looks like and have like clear criteria. I think that is the first and foremost thing that a lot of people don't do super well, which is say, hey, what are our core competencies? How do those apply? And then like literally then level down, what does it mean for this role? And can I actually measure expectation against that in a like disciplined way? And I think it's really almost in that way, like an act of like upfront thinking, structure, and then discipline that you can get to a much higher fidelity, quality of hire metric early on. And then I think the layers, like that's your early like indicator one. And I think the layers then that you take from that have to be attrition, promotion, and performance management, all wrapped together and basically say, hey, here's my quality of hire based upon, what I see. And then, you can throw in a few other structures like 9-box and stuff like that. But I would typically say like less is more in this space. So like do the upfront work, make sure you like have managers actually be able to give you signal within, I think 90 days. I think you can get signal within 90 days, at least directionally. And then you have to layer in that performance management data, which I think if you have the infrastructure set up right from the performance management standpoint, you can actually get to be much less subjective and way more objective.
No, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Circling back to AI, we obviously talked about AI kind of in every sort of facet of this conversation. I suppose in terms of sort of a summary or to give advice to people who are listening when it comes to thinking about what AI can do right now, how it can change the game, what would you say? What would your advice be to people about how they should be thinking about AI right now?
Well, I think my first advice would be don't be scared of it. I think that ultimately I've seen, or at least I've read a decent amount of tension of like, will AI end up replacing, particularly recruiting or TA or HR jobs? And I think that instills a weird faux dynamic with AI that I just don't think needs to be there. And so I think my advice would simply be like, one, don't buy into that narrative. Because I still think no matter, what AI will be able to do for us, I think until it gets to a point in which it's not going to do hallucinations, you're not going to be able to like always set it in front of a candidate. Because like even if it does a 1 out of 100, like if you lose that one person, like you're going to be in trouble. And like that could be the person that's a hire. And again, it gets back to the human element. But like I think that's just like the thematic thing of like, don't be afraid, experiment, try things out. Then I think practically where I've been focusing a lot of like, how can we think about AI is, can we actually think about AI first and foremost on cleaning up our processes? And so anything that you do today that was like, you're literally sitting down to write hands-on keys on something, like I would say immediately try to do that with AI. Just like literally go, okay, wait, what was I about to go do? Was I about to try to write an assessment? Was I about to try to write a job description? Whatever. Like, nope, don't go to AI. Think about that. And then the second piece, which is like, again, I think about processing and analysis and say, okay, I don't think that TA folk, myself included, are always the most quantitative junkies out there. And so as much as we might try to want to live in Excel, I don't know if we all can. And so it's like, how can you amplify AI to help you do that analysis piece? And then how can you really, I think about building a system which AI is an assistant compared to, like said, replacing you. And then I think there's interesting places that I've begun experimenting that I think people are going to be experimenting going forward, which is really interesting of like, what does AI do with interviewing in general? And like, how do you think about that? Not just from the assessment side, but like also, like I said, that candidate experience side. And so my guess is you have to have some sort of combination of AI can do a certain amount of things, but then you would still need a human element touch. And so how do you think about creatively, trying to meld those two things of where does the AI assist and then what does the human have to do? And I think interviewing is again, the really interesting one to try to get at, because as best you can, even AI, has its own subjectiveness at times, but as best you can, I think you can create enough assessments that are objective that it can run. I think if you think about like high volume recruiting, or if you think about very, high level of applicant pool that you're trying to sort through, I think there are clever ways that AI will help you out there. Obviously there's plenty of tools out there to stack rank resumes and stuff like that. But like, even when it gets to more qualitative stuff, I think you can start to experiment and kind of lean on it more to then create more efficiency for your recruiters to actually focus on the right people.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I suppose to round things off as a final question, what do you think the future might look like? So how does this all pan out? So if we had this conversation again in 3 or 4 years' time, what would we be talking about?
Yeah, well, I think it might be in like 2 months' time. The AI continues to evolve rapidly. And so I think I say all of these things about AI today, and like in 2 weeks, it could have a completely different version out that changes the game. And so I do think this is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this conversation. I think, though, like if I had to try to throw on my Nostradamus and figure out what the future would look like, I think that ultimately you're going to have clean recruiting teams, and you continue to be having to do this less with more. But I think what you're going to end up having is way more of a question on how has actual work changed and what type of roles you actually need to hire now in 3 to 5 years. Like, I think that's the thing of where we're going of like, I think anything that we're recruiting for today is going to be vastly different in 3 to 5 years. And I think that's you could argue that's like the biggest change that's happened in, since the, 2000s. And like, coding really was coming at. It's like, I just think that ultimately, like these roles that we're hiring for are going to change, and everything's going to have, I think within 3 years, an element of either AI or a different technology piece to it. And everyone's going to be a technologist. And so it's going to be more than, I think, a question of what separates people out, right? It's not just their ability as a tool, but it's like going to be, I think, their ability to think. And I think we're going to actually see a bit of a reversion back to like abilities, capabilities, first principle thinking as like a means to find the best problem solvers that will then cobble together and use all the tools that are available for everyone at that point, versus I think today where we're still looking for a very skill heavy environment at times. Like, I just can't imagine in 3 years that that's the same story. I think that the way that AI works and the way it's going to affect all these jobs is going to be drastic. I think obviously on the tech side that's true. I'd be interested to see where that goes on like the go-to-market side, because I actually don't know. I think that there's still an element I think about sales or anything about marketing, like there's elements in which I think AI helps you, but you're still, in that like person to person human connection piece. But like, I don't know. Does like if companies change how they, accept sales calls or how they accept pitches, does that then evolve how you have to actually try to get them? And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing, which is like, we're going to have to shift and evolve and become even more fluent with AI and with, honestly, my guess would be with what our businesses are doing to like in a deeper way to actually solve the talent problem. Because it's going to become, I think, a very like heterogeneous, like a lot of people are going to have the same skills. It's just going to be very hard to separate out the chaff.
Absolutely fascinating times. Mark, thank you very much for talking to me.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it and hope you have a great rest of the day, Matt.
My thanks to Mark. You can follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can search all the past episodes at recruitingfuture.com. On that site, you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Recruiting Future Feast, and get the inside track on everything that's coming up on the show. Thanks very much for listening. I'll be back next time, and I hope you'll join me.
This is my show.